what kind of witch are you? Do you resonate with any of the witchy labels you see online? Or do you consider yourself eclectic, intuitively dabbling into whatever calls to you from one season of your life to the next? I get these kinds of questions from viewers all the time, and so I've responded in the form of this curated art video for you. My short answer when I get asked what kind of witch I am is eclectic. I've never truly resonated with the need to simplify my craft into any of the common witchy labels, which is not to say that if you happen to truly resonate with one specific type of witchcraft, that it makes you a simpleton. Not by any means. In fact, simplicity is one of my power words for 2022, because I've had a history of reinventing the wheel, which can make life feel unnecessarily complicated sometimes. That being said, though, it has always been my natural tendency to dance to the beat of my own drum, both in the Muggle world and once I began my witchy path. I am an Aquarius after all, so being innovative and creating some kind of pattern interruption is just something that comes with the territory of being me. I believe any and everything we do in our daily life can be infused with magical intent, so it doesn't really feel necessary for me to overly identify with any one specific aspect of my witchy experience. But of course, we all have our particular skills, gifts, and interests, and you guys have often guessed right in asking me what kind of witch I am. Most people seem to see me either as an art witch, an elemental witch, or a kitchen witch. And yes, I am all of those witches. I have always been an artist ever since I could hold a pencil, and after discovering my witchy path in my early to mid-20s, visual art forms have always naturally found their way into my practice. Mainly, this has taken the form of designing grimoires and grimoire pages for myself and others, and I've also used drawing, painting, and crafting as methods for weaving spells of all kinds. But outside of the realm of my career and those few big spells that I do cast each year, typically my everyday magic comes through within and around the regular mundane tasks that I go through at home. Where the term art witch easily resonates with me, and I have happily called myself an art witch many times, on the other hand, the term kitchen witch is something that I've heard myself described as without necessarily having thought to refer to myself as such. I guess the reason for this is just that I don't spend most of my time in the kitchen. For most of my adult life, I've been very busy with my career and other things, and even though some of my magic definitely does take place in the kitchen, it's never been my main vocation as a witch. But when someone told me that I seemed like a kitchen witch, it reminded me that it's actually typically accepted that not all kitchen witch practices have to be done in the kitchen, and it's more so about being a domestic witch overall. This definition of a kitchen witch as a domestic witch definitely resonates with me, because I am definitely a bit of a homebody. I'm naturally introverted, and it's extremely important to me that the place where I spend most of my time be a place of spiritual nourishment. Not only have I always tended to feel most connected to my spiritual center when I'm in the comfort of home, but a lot of the intentions behind my spells are centered around manifesting a more and more harmonious domestic environment. One of my biggest manifestations since starting my spiritual journey has been becoming a biz witch, another witchy label that applies to me. But what's kind of funny about it is that it really just stems from both the desire to spend my time being an art witch and the desire to create from my own happy place, aka the ability to work from home. And it's this concept of wanting to rebalance the systems and structures that hold space for my creativity and comfort that's led me to be categorized as an elemental witch. In the process of trying to manifest a successful art career and a healthy, sustainable home environment, I've gone on tons of deep dives into tons of different types of paths, modalities, techniques, divination systems, etc. I guess you can say this was me being an air witch, if you like to label witches by their zodiac sign and their embodiment of the element associated with it. The air element, which rules over both my sun sign and my rising sign, as well as some other areas of my chart, like my Venus, for example, is the element of intellectual experience. So it makes sense that when I first learned that it was possible to choose my own spiritual path, I started by researching and analyzing spirituality as a whole, before hastily slapping on any labels. But one of the most valuable things that I've discovered along that early part of my journey has been the alchemical elements. How each element represents not just the tangible experience of that element in 3D reality, but also a deeper aspect of the human experience. I had of course seen in passing that witchy and spiritual folk tended to refer to elements and listed them on correspondence charts for spell ingredients and stuff like that, but it wasn't until I became a tarot reader that the power and significance of elements really hit home for me. I discovered the law of attraction and tarot at exactly the same time in a truly magical turn of events that changed the entire course of my life forever. It's kind of a long story, but it's one of those tales that really reminds us just how miraculous the universe can be. If you would like to hear me tell that tale in its entirety in its very own video, please do leave a comment here letting me know. But when I was learning to read tarot cards, I quickly discovered that the tarot refers to different aspects of the human experience as being ruled over by different elements. And being able to see through the cards that I was pulling for myself and others exactly how the elements are at play in our lives, I became obsessed with learning to master the elements. It occurred to me that by consciously connecting to the elements and by realigning the way the elements are arranged in our lives, we have the ability to co-create with the universe to design the most fulfilling life possible. I began to study other traditions' teachings about elements even outside of the tarot community, and I discovered that the elements are kind of the answer to life, for me anyway. So now I think in terms of elements, and it's become a basis for my overall outlook as a magical practitioner and spiritual seeker, to a point where if I really was forced to label myself as a particular type of witch, I might really have to say elemental witch, because it's such an important cornerstone of my entire belief system and outlook on the world. But what about the whole seasonal living thing that's always been such a big part of my experience, even since before I identified as a witch? Is there such thing as a seasonal witch? Well, I'm sure that there is a meme or a Pinterest pin or a TikTok video out there somewhere validating the term seasonal witch. But that's just the thing. You can literally slap any descriptive term before the word witch and say it's a type of witch. But are these labels helpful or limiting when, as witches and human beings, we're constantly in a state of evolution? For example, by some people's standards, maybe I'm a nature witch or a green witch or a hedge witch because of how important seasons and nature is to me. But does it make me not a green witch because I currently happen to live in an industrial area with just a second-story patio? Was I a cottage witch back when I used to live in a little house with a large garden, but now I'm an urban witch? Personally, I don't think that level of labeling is necessary or particularly helpful. For me, one of the most magical things about being a witch is that I can be adaptable and thrive in whatever phase of life I'm in. For the sake of making this point though, let's use this example. Some people would say that I'm an urban witch because of where I currently live. But I wouldn't necessarily agree because even though I do value owning where I'm at right now, specifically labeling myself as an urban witch would feel out of alignment with my intention to eventually move to a more cottage-like environment. And while it would be fun to manifest that intention by starting to call myself a cottage witch now, some would call that being a poser. Mainly my own inner voice of self-doubt as I'm observing the difference between my current reality and that desired reality, which can create resistance in the manifestation process. But then on the other side of that same argument, some would say that by labeling themselves an urban witch during this phase of life, it would empower them to really tap into the elements that are available to them in their industrial environment. And embracing that identity would truly serve them. For others, getting really obsessed with the idea of embodying the energy of a cottage witch in spite of their city-like location would really help them to manifest that cottage lifestyle of their dreams. So you see how it all depends on what feels most healthy and aligned for the individual? This all goes back to this interesting discovery that I've made recently in my manifestation studies. How some people are specific manifestors and others are non-specific manifestors. For a non-specific manifestor like me, it can be fun to gather inspiration from all different paths that interest me, but when I try to niche down too hard, it actually closes me off from greater possibility. And perhaps this is why I most often just call myself simply an eclectic witch. For some, it feels really empowering to be a part of a label that unifies them with a group of people who have similar interests, or sets them apart as unique. But for some, it seems limiting or just generally pointless to try to put a specific label on who we are and what we do. So this was all just my personal opinion and experience. But how do you feel about labels? Do you love having a specific label, or do you hate being boxed in that way? Or are you like me, open to being called any of the labels that apply, but not too concerned with which one is the be-all to end-all? I would love to hear your perspective, and I invite you to share your thoughts in a comment. One thing I did not go into in this short video is the kind of labels associated with a witch's theological beliefs or heritage-based paths. If you would like me to make a video going down that rabbit hole, please do leave a comment and let me know. In the meantime, here are some other videos going into more depth on some of the subjects that we discussed in this video if they interest you. And thank you so much for being your magical self. Until next time, blessed be.